Right, we're going to be back in a moment. Right now, though, we are heading back to ITV News for an update on events in Ukraine this morning.
Good morning. Around 40 people are thought to have been killed in the first few hours of President Putin's conflict with Ukraine. That is according to an advisor to Ukraine's president. In the capital, many are still trying to flee. All are trying to make sense of what happened in the early hours. Western leaders immediately condemned the invasion. Geraint Vincent on what we know so far.
It started before dawn. Across the country, Ukrainians woke to explosions lighting up the sky. The Russian assault on this country began with missile attacks on key targets. This was an airport. On television, Ukrainians saw their president's response to what he described as a full-scale war. Volodymyr Zelensky spoke of the practicalities of popular resistance, urging his people to give blood and saying that his government would issue weapons to anyone who wants them. As columns of Russian military transports and armoured vehicles rolled across Ukraine's border in the north, south and east, the Russian president warned Ukrainians not to resist and to lay down their arms. In his televised address, Vladimir Putin delivered an ominous message. Whoever would try and stop us, he said, should know that Russia's response will lead you to such consequences that you have never faced. Martial law was declared by Ukraine's government and sirens wailed across the Ukrainian capital. The traffic queues to leave Kiev lengthened through a fearful morning. The assault on this sovereign nation, so long expected, has finally come, and the world waits and watches to see how fast and how far Russia will go. Geraint Vincent, ITV News.
In the last few minutes, NATO has just announced plans to send more military support to the region. The shelling of Kiev and other major cities began early this morning. Explosions were reported in the capital, Kharkiv, Dnipro and Mariupol. And a second wave of strikes are thought to have taken place in the last hour. Let's get reaction from our Europe editor, James Mates. What are you seeing in Kiev?
Relatively quiet here in the last few hours. There was a fairly sustained assault on the city's airfields and air raid sirens going off around the city. The air is full of the smoke from, you can't quite see it, but a burning intelligence headquarters building nearby. But that so far seems to be the only real damage within Kiev itself. There are these reports of a new wave of shelling and of heavy fighting. Reliable information is very, very hard to come by at the moment. Lots of claims of Russian tanks and helicopters being shot down, but we simply don't know whether that's true or just the exciting claims of the defenders. We do think, though, heavy fighting, particularly in the northeast and the south around the cities of Kharkiv and Kherson near the Crimean Peninsula.
James, for now, thank you very much. Back here, the Prime Minister will address the nation this lunchtime. Let's join our Deputy Political Editor, Anushka Asthana. What can we expect from Boris Johnson?
When he delivers that speech, he is going to describe this invasion as a catastrophe for the continent. We know that he has had an emergency Cobra meeting this morning where they've discussed ramping up sanctions. Sources tell me he wants to put in place the largest and most severe sanctions package ever against Russia. He'll be discussing that with G7 leaders this afternoon, hoping to get agreement. And the Foreign Secretary, Liz Truss, is hitting the phone, speaking to her counterparts as well. Remember, there was criticism this week that Britain's first set of sanctions were too weak. And beyond what you're seeing on the ground, all of this is having a knock-on effect in other areas as well. The oil price has hit the highest in 8 years, and there is a warning this morning that petrol prices could reach £1.60 per litre. Bad news when we already have a cost of living crisis.
Anushka, thank you very much. Look, we'll be back with our next update on the invasion of Ukraine at midday, when we'll have the latest on those trying to escape from the capital, the latest reaction from the West on this, the biggest test. Until then, we've got more coverage on our website, including from the latest from our correspondents on the ground. Bye-bye for now.